Welcome, everybody. My name is Dr. Michael Harris. This is the Fruits of Virtue podcast. Has to do with living by the good qualities of life, the virtues that we can live by, becoming your best self. And today I have a guest by the name of Gary Shenton. He's a social worker here in the Idaho Falls area, and I'm delighted to have him join us. I came to be associated with him when my father was in an assisted living center. And so welcome, Gary.
Thank you. Thank you for the invite.
Absolutely. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into social work?
You know, I kind of think we're leaves blowing in the wind down here, and the Lord just kind of directed me. I'm from Little Dubois, Idaho. Didn't want to leave the area. Started some schooling at Ricks College, ended up at BYU, and finally got a master's in social work at Walla Walla University. And I was going to be an educator. I had a master's in education and an undergraduate degree in health education. I had a driver's education minor and coaching minors, but never got into the school system. So I think I had 27 rejection letters from schools. So wow. I took the first job and it was social work.
Interesting. You know, in that my interest in having you on today has to do with the elderly and people that are kind of nearing the end of life. I may direct our conversation, our discussion in that direction. I'm in my 60s and, you know, it's not that many years before my wife and I move in that direction or get closer to that stage of life. And then many of our audience have people that are either their friends or their parents are approaching or in that age range. So it's a serious topic, I think, for people as we get older.
Yes. And it's not fun. Getting older is not fun.
No, it's not. I'm starting to have more aches and pains, and it is a different time, isn't it? Different time in life.
Yeah.
So what can you share with us, our audience, or some information about this idea of assisting people as they approach the end of life? How do we help them?
First of all, condolences to you and your family.
Thank you.
Your dad was one of a kind. He was a pioneer in his work at State Hospital, author of 4 different books, civic groups. I think it was Civitans. Is that what he was with?
President
Rotary. Thank you. So sorry. Anyway, he made his mark. And as a social worker, I aim to, I don't know that I'm going to live 96 years like him. What a great man. It was our pleasure to work with him and get to know him a bit. What an honor.
Thank you.
We love that.
As people get older, should we assist them? Should we help them think about these final months and years of their life? Are there things on their mind that they don't talk about that we could help them with?
Yes, definitely. You know, I kind of treat people who I work with as, I try to think of them as family, because I'm the same age as you, and I want good cares for me down the line, and I want to be kept home as long as I possibly can. There are other alternatives. You know, these assisted living facilities are great places. They're kind of retirement communities, but they come with a cost. Attached to these retirement communities are memory care units. As we get older, our brains soften up, they get a little mushy and they start deteriorating, and we need help. We can't do this alone, and it's all about family, and we just look for options. Home health is a great option to keep people at home, give them some therapies, both physical therapy, speech therapy, occupational therapies, and just try to build people up strength wise. There comes a point when physical therapy taxes you more than it helps you, and at that point we look at hospice as an option, and that's where I'm at the last 12 years. It's been enjoyable.
You know, it's in our situation, it's probably not uncommon. We waited. My dad had a live-in care person that came into the home and helped him after my mom passed away. We didn't do much prep work. We didn't look for resources like we probably should have, and he went into the hospital with pneumonia. He had a problem with walking and with breathing, and so we were caught short knowing what do we do next, and we were scampering or trying to find where we could take him. He had long-term care insurance, but we didn't know what to do. What should people do, the children of these older folks, to prepare? How do we find resources to help them so we don't wait till the last moment?
Early education. You got to be talking to mom and dad while they're in good health, while they got their memory with them. We need to put a living will together, which when a person puts a living will together, they're of sound mind. They've still got the steering wheel. They want their wishes known. And then when there comes a point when someone is unable to make decisions for themselves, heaven forbid, dementia or stroke, that's when everything is in place. It's going to be so much smoother. There could be a post in place. How far do I want to go before we do not resuscitate me? It's all about talk and communication within families. Some of these are taboo subjects, talking about my death, which funeral home I want or wish to use, where I want to be buried, cremation. It all comes with a cost. It's expensive. A traditional service now is right around $10,000, give or take. We're seeing more cremations right now at about $3,000. And so you need to know where everybody stands on those.
Yeah. So where do we get these documents? Where would someone get the living will and the post documents that are needed?
You can get all these online right now. Just Google. Google's amazing. Post forms. There's some specific for Idaho. The living will does not need to be notarized, but if you're ahead of the game, you're working with an attorney. An attorney can also help you with finances, making that smoother.
You work with the elderly. Does this take an emotional toll on you? How do you deal with being around people that are dying, that are weeks or months away from the end of their life?
That's a great question. As a social worker, I always said that I couldn't work with child protection. I couldn't go into a home and pull children out of a home. That would be hard. In the second breath, I said, I don't think I could ever work with hospice as well. But I just had to dig in, get my feet wet, and it's been so natural, Michael. It's just been so natural to fit into this. I don't take it home. It's so natural that someone of a neighbor's passing, I'm able to go to their home, even if they're not on my caseload, and I can help families. It's just been natural for me. I work with the mentally ill for 20 years, the developmental delayed for 8 years. All my training and background has helped me help others. And this is just one other phase of our natural life, and it's just been smooth for me.
Do the elderly have a fear of death? Is it common for people that are in their later years, 80s and 90s, to have difficulty talking about it or being afraid to talk about it?
That is a pretty big misconception. I just buried my in-laws. They were 92 and 96 as well. And they say, come get me. I'm not afraid to pass. I'm ready for this next new birthday. They don't fear it. And a 101-year-old lady the other day, she said, I'm not afraid of dying, but dying takes too long.
Oh, wow.
That's kind of where they fit. They're ready to move on. Unless there's some kind of complicated issues, they're tired. These old bodies, with like your dad, 96 years of wear and tear. There's a lot of physical pain and problems.
Interesting. Yeah, when I brought it up to my dad the few times that I did, he didn't want to go into any detail, but he didn't have any fear of death. He just said, well, it'll come when it comes. And it's interesting, the last few months, on several occasions, he said, I have a sense I'm getting closer. He'd never done that until he did it. And then he told the staff about a week before he died, we had him go leave the facility, have this big party with extended family, and he told the staff, he says, this is my going away party. He didn't tell the family that, but he died a week later. So he had a sense. Do people have a sense often that they're getting closer?
Yeah. Some of the patients I see start giving things away toward the end. It's not going to compare it to a suicide, but a suicide has some similarities. They're ready. They often get a good rally, start giving away things, and they just start preparing us who are left behind. It says, I'm moving on. And that's a good time for the family to be communicating back and forth and saying, yes, us as well. We're going to miss you terribly, but we're going to be okay. You created a great legacy for us. And then it's easier at that time to have this thing start to happen.
Interesting. Does religion or spirituality have anything to do with the process of death and dying?
It's huge. The definition of hospice is you have 6 or months less to live. At your current rate, your medical issues are building up, and that's pretty much the definition. So when someone hits that definition, they start getting ready. They start preparing for the other side spiritually. And another one of the main reasons I really enjoy this is I get to talk to people who get glimpses of the other side, and it's overwhelming. They talk about the organization over there. They talk about colors, another spectrum of colors that they couldn't even identify. They see dogs they haven't seen for 20 years. They remember a picture on grandma's dresser of a lady, and that lady came to them briefly, and she can explain now who she was, a little bit more about her. Spiritually, it really helps a lot through this transition, and I really reinforce that. I like to build enough rapport that they say, Gary, do you want to know what it's like on the other side? And these people see glimpses of it. People sitting around tables, shuffling papers and holding objects. When they first see them, they pay no attention to them. There's people on the other side. side. They just get to visually see. And as the next visit, they're a little closer and they start talking about their short cropped hair and how they're dressed. And then they fade out. And then the third or fourth visit, they start acknowledging me. They're winking at me or nodding a little bit at me. And I get closer. And the next time I get to see them, they're unresponsive and I lose my feel with them on the other side. But I've got enough taste in it that I just need to understand myself. Am I ready to meet my maker myself? And so I learned from my patients and the people I work with that there's more to this earth life, and I'm accountable for my relationships and what I do. And I love to see this birthday. I think death is another opportunity where we miss heaven and earth being so close. We're so excited about that baby, but I think there's an exchange there that spiritually we miss, but it's all good.
Great point. So it's just as important the transition over as the transition coming in here, right?
Yes.
It's the
Yeah.
coming and the going. You know, I have a son who's not religious at all, and he says, I never dream about my mother, his grandmother, my father's wife. And he said the day before he died, he saw her pacing in a room, back and forth, as if she was waiting for something or someone. I thought that was kind of interesting. Are there those who struggle to make the transition? Are there those who don't want to die? They're fearful. They just need more help, maybe more of a discussion with you.
There's
Okay.
also my counterpart, a chaplain, who also between the two of us and a nurse and an aide, that's the little team we've got. Between the four of us talking, we can soften. A lot of times the family says, well, don't tell grandpa or Uncle Bill that they're on hospice. And we go to the patient and they say, so I'm on hospice now. I mean, they know they're ready for it, to hear it. Some people aren't ready for it. And when that situation arises, that's where I look and talk. Is there anything unresolved in your life that we can talk about? Do we need to call somebody? Do we need to write someone a letter? Do I need to go visit someone? And I'm very much up on resolving any complication that may resolve or keep this complicated or longer. Some people actually take weeks longer to pass than normal. And so we just get them to talk. And it's not that easy, but it is that easy. That makes sense.
Interesting. I noticed with my father about a year and a half before he passed, we're both social workers. He had some very personal things he brought up about his life with me. I think he trusted me. He knew it wouldn't go anywhere. I would hold it, but very personal things that happened early in his life and even early in his marriage that he wanted to divulge, almost confess or vent. And I thought that was interesting that just kind of getting right with yourself.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I'm ready to meet my maker.
Yes. Are there any cultural differences when it comes to death and dying?
You know, we live not too far from Fort Hall, and there's some definite, and I don't know the definites, but I've got counter workers in Pocatello that say once they pass that, and we honor culture, we honor their wishes, and we need to know it. When a Native American person passes, they usually wait 4 to 6 hours before they call a funeral home. The body sits for a while, and it's just great. The Hawaiians also have a little time lapse there, and we just religiously as well. There are different culturals, and I wish I knew how to expound more on that right now. I'm not caught off the cuff, but definitely just listen to people and have their wishes.
I worked in Bingham the last few years prior to retirement, and we had a lot of Native Americans come in, and I learned some things. If they lost some hair on their pillow while they're in the hospital bed, the family would gather that up and hold it. And then if they had lost a limb, an arm or a leg, it was actually preserved, frozen in their refrigerator or in a freezer. And when they were buried, they put the hair and the limbs together with the body as they died to cross over, because they feel like either in the resurrection they're going to have all their body back together again. But so they gathered those parts. I thought that was interesting.
Yes, it is.
Very interesting.
And we need to honor those wishes, and that's part of them, part of their upbringing.
Absolutely. This has been really interesting. Do you have any other stories that you can divulge? You shared some stuff that's very, very fascinating, very interesting, very almost sacred. Anything else that you could share about your experiences with the elderly?
You know, probably not at this time. Death is so spiritual and so personal that it's incredible. I've seen or talked to people who see lights, bright lights. Others don't see a thing. Others wait for someone to come talk with them, and they don't get that. It's just different. Everybody's different. Some people will pass in their sleep. Others have a difficult time. Another misconception is morphine. Grandpa's on morphine. They're going to die. Morphine does not hasten death.
Okay.
I talked to a child the other day. He wanted to know if grandma was going to bleed before she passes. Children's grief is pretty big. Children kind of hide their grief, learn to talk with them, initiate talk. They'll have sore stomachs, headaches. That's just part of their grief. We just need to be better listeners, understanders. Children need to be at a viewing. It just helps. Children 9 and under have a hard time knowing that a permanent separation until they hit roughly the age of 9, that permanency is not permanent. We'll see them again, but a child, 5 to 8 to 9 has a hard time with that fact.
If someone younger who has a family member that's dying, do you think it would be a good thing to suggest they find someone to talk to if they're struggling with the health or the passing of a family member?
Yes, these school counselors are ready to jump and help these kids at any time. We just lost someone over in Victor, and before mom passed, she had everything set up with school counselors. It was just amazing. But these kids, they're inquisitive. They'll talk, they'll listen, they'll cry, and it's just a great time to bond. And these early bondings, talking about death. There's some good readings. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross has got a lot of good death and dying information. Depending on your religious affiliation, there's Deseret Book or some other Christian stores in town that have some near-death books that really help educate and prepare us. Probably the best thing that you could do if in preparing yourself and grandma and grandpa or mom and dad is to be a hospice volunteer. You can be right at the side of someone who's passing, read them the newspaper, read them some scriptures, help them run an errand, work on a bucket list. Some of these folks, before they pass, I got to ride a horse one more time. If I could just go to a rodeo, one more rodeo. If someone can take me back to my hometown, it's about an hour and a half away. I want to see my old homestead and my old house just one more time. We need more volunteers, hospice volunteers that can see this, feel it, be part of it, learn to love and grieve.
Thank you. That's very, very good. What you've offered today is very, very helpful. Life is full of opposites, isn't it? And with the opposite of grief is joy and happiness. And I found at the passing of my father, it became a celebration, a joyful time for someone to have lived a full life and do all the things that they wanted to do and more, and to honor them. Gary, thank you so much for taking the time today. I think people will be richly blessed for the items that you've offered, the suggestions, the experiences that you've had. Any last comments before we go?
It's been my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary, and wish you all the best. Hope to see you down the road a little ways.
Thanks so much.
Take care. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.